How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Shining Vale Season 1. This is a new show from Starz that aired March 6th to April 17th, 2022. The show is created by Jeff Astrof and Shannon Horgan, and stars Courteney Cox, Greg Kinnear, and Gus Birney. And this is about a writer and her family, a husband, a daughter, a son, and a nice little dog. Always gotta love dogs. They move into an old house in the middle of nowhere so that she can start to rekindle her writing energy. The family's recently been through a lot. She just had an affair on her husband, and the husband wants to keep the marriage afloat and wants to help her get back on track. She's struggled with drugs and alcohol, so has her mother, and she's trying to stay clean and, continue to work. The publishing agency really wants her new book. However, once they get to the new house, they find a spirit of a 1950s housewife, and at first she thinks she's just crazy, but then the spirit starts to help her write the book, but also starts to take control over her and eat into her life. And of course, there's more going on with the spirit than initially meets the eye. And overall, this is a fun comedy show, and also really great to see Courteney Cox again. Courteney Cox also did the new Scream movie this year, so a pretty big year for her having two horror projects. Anyway, I guess the first thing we should talk about is the kind of comedy this is. I was thinking it might be a little more on the nose. Early on in the show, they did a parody of Paranormal Activity where you see her standing beside the bed for hours on end and the footage fast forwards through it. But that's really about as direct as it goes. You see lots of references to other horror movies, like at one time she finds a projector and it gets to be a little bit like Sinister, and there's a few things like Amityville Horror you can see referenced a few times, but it's not really on-the-nose Easter egg style humor for the most part. This is character-driven humor, and a lot of the humor is derived by getting to know the characters and them making jokes based on their personalities and the situations they get themselves in. And there is a fair bit of levity amongst the characters, and like all character-driven comedies, it gets funnier the more you get to know these characters and the more you get to fall into the way they do things. So, yeah, there is horror movie Easter eggs, and there is a fair bit of humor based on horror movie tropes, but a lot of the humor in this series is getting to know the characters and understanding how they're all going to play off each other. So, it is a funny series, but it's not super wink and nudge in your face, jokes throughout the whole thing. And actually, the plot in here, it actually could work even if it wasn't humorous, which I found interesting. They are, kind of playing off lots of, haunted house tropes, lots of ghost tropes, and you do see them kind of pointing that out. But at the same time, they're doing a good job using them themselves, and you kind of get invested, who exactly is this ghost? What does she want? How are their characters going to resolve their differences? So yeah, it could have been a straightforward horror series if they wanted it to be, and it would have still been interesting, and in turn, the humor kind of adds to that, and you do really get invested in the plot. So even though this isn't the silliest comedy ever, you do kind of get engrossed in this and want to figure out what's gonna happen next. So yeah, I was pretty interested in it. But anyway, I guess one other thing we have to mention, this is Shining Vale. So of course, one of the things, and the thing that they're going to reference the most, is The Shining. It's not a direct parody of The Shining, But you can see several times throughout this series how it kind of mirrors The Shining, you know, a writer wanting to finish their new project and wanting to stay clean, wanting to stay off the drugs and alcohol. And you get several little things that mirror it. You actually get a pretty close copy to the If You Hear Me Writing scene. That's in here where she's on her laptop and the husband comes in. If you hear this, don't interrupt me, you know. So, yeah, there is almost a direct recreation there. They find a tiki bar in their basement, and you do get a little bit of the bar scene, you know, where the 50s housewife is a little bit like Lloyd for a minute. And there is the curtains in this house are actually a smaller version of the carpet pattern quite famous in Stanley Kubrick's film. So you do see a lot of mirroring there, especially towards the end, the ending. There is lots of Shining references, but I don't want to spoil the ending. But that being said, it mirrors The Shining, but it's not a direct copy of The Shining. Obviously, this is a small haunted house. It's not a hotel. Oddly enough, it doesn't take place in winter, so sadly no snow. And while she does have her husband and her kids, they're not really a direct parallel to Danny and Wendy. I mean, every now and then you can see how they relate in some jokes, but they're not really trying to be those characters. So yeah, it is kind of interesting, a show kind of inspired by The Shining, but it really is a series of mirrors and not a direct copy or a direct parody. They're not going to have to pay Stephen King any money for this, you know? But it is interesting to see the comparisons. But like I said, the little horror movie Easter egg stuff is interesting, and the characters do have a sense of levity and banter, which leads to some pretty fun jokes, but also the plot in here is good enough where if it wasn't comedy, I'd still be interested. So a good series. It's not the best thing ever, but definitely a fun watch. It's only 8 episodes, so if you have Starz, go ahead and watch it. If you're at all interested in horror, you'll, probably have a fair amount of fun with it. So yeah, not the biggest and best thing ever, but a really enjoyable little 8-episode series. I would recommend it. Anyway, without further ado, let's analyze the plot a little bit more. I'm going to dive in. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and kind of describe the season in a little bit more detail. We open up with the family moving into the haunted house. You can tell the mom's kind of on edge with the rest of her family. Obviously, she had the affair with the husband, but the kids actually know about this, and the kids are a little upset at their mom that they have to move away from their old lives and be in the middle of nowhere in this haunted house. They go into the house, and you meet the real estate agent, who I believe is actually the lady who played Audrey Horne on Twin Peaks, so that's always cool. And the wife sets up her writing workshop in the attic of this house. And attics are always great sets, especially for a horror movie. So a really cool haunted attic writing room there. And she'll begin to get to work on her new novel. And she is trying to stay clean and focused. No drugs, no alcohol, repair the marriage after the affair, and just get her life together. Well, they're seeing a therapist, trying to work things out in their marriage, and the therapist says, I'm going to prescribe you some medication. It's okay. I'm prescribing it to you. It's not going to be a bad thing. Well, she takes the medicine, and she starts to kind of lose time. She'll do stuff and not remember doing it, like messing with her husband's PowerPoint presentation for work. But she also sees this ghost of a 1950s housewife who mirrors a character inside her novel. And at first she doesn't even think it's real. She's like, oh no, the medicine, I'm seeing things. But the therapist says that it's probably your brain trying to work through its repressed desires. And if you listen to it, let it speak its piece, you can kind of use it as a muse in your new novel and just kind of let it work itself out. So whenever she takes the medicine, the spirit kind of takes control, and she'll end up writing a whole lot better, which is good because her advance is starting to run out, and her publishers really need a book in time to go out for this, I think it's like a summer release. So she's writing, but at the same time, the spirit's starting to take more and more control, and it's a power balance of how much can she let it have control, how much can she get what she wants when it does that, but at the same time it's sacrificing her life and quite literally her body. So it's a delicate power balance, and of course there is more to the ghost. Is it real, and if it is, who was it, and what exactly is going on here? So you do get more to that. You also get the character of the husband. He's trying to forgive his wife for this affair. He's trying to repair his marriage and make sure everything's working. At his job, there's another lady, Catherine, and Catherine, he starts to kind of fall for, and in the back of his head, he's always going to think, well, she had an affair, why can't I? And that's going to be the will he stay or will he go element that kind of runs through the series. You also get the daughter character who's mad at her mom and wants to rebel. She wants to rebel, but her whole family is kind of out there anyway, so how does she rebel? Well, she actually falls in love with this boy who's very religious, and she starts going to church and becoming religious herself. And I thought that was a funny twist on the rebellious teen concept. She's rebelling by going to church and being more religious. So her story was pretty fun. The boy she's dating, his mom also lives in the same block as they do. I think it's their next door neighbor. And she's going to be warning them about the ghost to stay away, so sort of that character like the man on the bike from Friday the 13th that kind of knows what's up and is going to be warning you away from it. And then you also get the younger brother. The younger brother is constantly wearing a VR headset and playing this augmented reality game in which he has to look around the real world for things that are sort of altered into this video game world, and he'll start to see a ghost of his own of this young girl that also died there, and he, of course, doesn't initially know it's a ghost and thinks it's part of the game, but he can't find anyone else on the internet talking about this ghost girl character, so he thinks it might be hidden content, and he's trying to investigate things, not knowing he's really digging into an actual ghost around the house. His story does lead to some cool imagery that they were only able to do through him because he doesn't know it's really a ghost, so they can push it kind of farther. But at the same time, his is definitely the C story. You can tell the writers didn't quite know what to do with him, so he's often just wandering around in the back finding something cool but not really having any major weight into the story. He's a good character, but they don't do enough with him, and I am kind of curious if they'll figure him out in Season 2 and give him a better plot arc. But yeah, he's definitely the last character there. So overall, when you do get to learn the characters in this series, when you do get to see them bounce off each other, like the dad does have some really fun lines in this. I think there's actually one scene where the actor actually scared Courteney Cox in real life, and they left that in the show just because they thought it was funny. So yeah, the characters do start to bounce off each other, and then you do get wrapped up in the plot with this spirit. What is it really? And the cool Shining references, like I forgot to mention it earlier, they even do the big white on black Shining title cards, to help note time. So yeah, there's some cool Shining references, there's a cool plot, and the characters are fun. Like I said, it could just be a fun ghost story, but the humor and the horror movie references do add a little cherry on the top. Not the best, most hilarious thing ever, and not the most nerdy thing ever, but for what it is, it's a fun little 8-episode watch, and if you got the time, it's good to see Courteney Cox again. There's a few good laughs, so yeah, not the best thing ever, but for horror movie fans that like ghost stories and yay, you want a few Easter eggs, it's a good enough show, and I definitely will be interested to see what they do in Season 2. It does end on a little bit of a cliffhanger, and I'm like, so wait, is Season 2 going to be about this? Okay, wonder what that will happen. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my TV shows playlist, and you can click there and see what other shows I've talked about. A few full season reviews, but also a lot of anthology horror episode reviews in there as well. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. TV playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.